Welcome back to Toriano Knows Ball. Sorry for the big gap in content, guys. We've been working with other pages and working on more content for you guys behind the scenes. But today we're going to be discussing one of my recent articles with football analysis. And we're going to be talking about potential late first round trade ups for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It has been talked about recently that the Jaguars will be the wild card of the draft, whether that be trading down, trading up into the first round, or taking a wild card selection at fifth overall, whether that be Tetaroa McMillan or Ashton Genty. So today we're going to be talking about the situation in which they double up and trade up from pick 36. And there's some really good prospects in the middle of this draft. There's a lot of beef in there, as well as a lot of weapons. So we're going to dive into this. I think it'll be very interesting to discuss. Pick 36 is a very valuable pick. It's considered to be an early second round pick, but you're getting a consensus first round selection possibly at that selection, depending on how many surprises we see happen in the first round. So you're likely to see somebody fall there. But in the likelihood that the Jaguars are uncomfortable selecting at 36 and they want to double dip and get a second, fifth year option, these are the guys that I expect for them to move up for. The first is going to be Matthew Golden. And you're seeing the ceiling for this guy come out to be the 12th overall selection to the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen him with Jerry Jones posted up. And there's some chatter that, maybe Tetaroa McMillan falls to them at 12. If that were to happen, and if they were to select Tetaroa McMillan and Golden were to expect a slide, I think the furthest he'll get will probably be selection 23. For me, him going to the Green Bay Packers is something that I do not want to see. If you were able to get to that 22nd overall selection, what it would require, based on the draft calculator, is pick 36, pick 107, and a 2026 third. To me, that is not a hefty price to get back into the first round, but obviously to some fans it may be. But I do think that this would be a worthy package to move for a guy like Golden, who could be your ex receiver. He's about 6 foot tall, 194 pounds. It's a 4.29 40. He had 9 touchdowns and 989 yards this past season for the Texas Longhorns and really excelled in the college playoff. So, to me, if you're looking for a guy who has his best football in front of him, he passes the character test. He obviously is trending in the right direction in terms of development. In Texas, they really focus on getting your route tree. I mean, even guys like Isaiah Bond, who I consider to be an average prospect, he has a complete route tree. So he's a natural hands catcher, is able to really excel on the deep ball, which is something that Liam Cohen has expressed he wants to continue to do, and opens up the field for a Brian Thomas Jr. And depending on what you do at fifth overall, this makes your offense electric. I mean, this is a guy who really can take the top off of defense, but also can separate. And like we said, that 4.29 speed, once he has the ball in his hands, he's able to really, really break ground. So this is a guy that I think could be a slider depending on what happens at 12th overall, what happens with Tetaroa McMillan. Again, Matthew Golden, I have him as a top 32 prospect on my big board, which we'll be releasing later today. And I think he's worthy of moving up four into the first round. Next, we have another Texas Longhorn and Jahdae Barron, the DB. I call him the DB because this guy can play outside corner for you. He can play nickel. He can play safety. He can play in the box. This guy is a jack of all trades, but also a master of one. I believe he is a phenomenal outside corner. He showed that this year in his junior season, and he really showed out this year with 5 interceptions and 11 pass breakups. He has a 4.39 40. He's about 5'11, 194 pounds, somewhere similar to where Matthew Golden is. But with his combination of intelligence, versatility, and playmaking, this is a guy that I think could be somebody that you want to move up for, whether he lands in the late 20s. Um, Barron, to me, I have him as my cornerback two. I have him 11th overall on my big board. And if this guy were to end up somehow at pick 21, I think you make the call to the Steelers and say, hey, we want this guy. To me, the Steelers don't necessarily need another DB. So they might be willing to answer and accept the phone call. And if they're not excited about what's left on the board, I think this is a move that you could make. To move up with the Steelers to 21, I have us giving up 36, 107, 221, and a 2026 third. So based off that package we saw with Matthew Golden, you're only adding a seventh round pick. So that gets you, a character in Jade Barron who's able to really uplift your overall secondary while also having the potential to be the best corner on this roster. So that's how I feel about Jade. To me, he really, really presents the opportunity to lift this team, lift the ceiling of this defense. And I think what we're looking at for the draft is to lift the ceiling. James Gladstone has laid the foundation that free agency will obviously lift the floor of the roster going forward, but to lift the ceiling, you have to do that through the draft. And Jade Barron is one of the prospects in this class that I think does that at an elite level. We saw Texas have a lot of success this past season, and I expect for him to be a phenomenal prospect in the NFL draft. Third on my list, we're going to dive into some real beef in the trenches in Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, the D tackle. I consider him to be the best nose tackle in this class. I have him at 17th overall on my big board, my top 32. If he were to land in the 20s, which a lot of people are predicting, I think this is something that you go get. Even if you don't take Mason Graham at fifth overall, I think this is the guy in terms of fixing the woes on the interior for the Jaguars. I think more so than Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham would be a phenomenal addition at selection fifth overall, but getting Kenneth Grant in the late first would be the answer for me. I think the weakness on the interior is the nose tackle position rather than the three tech. I think we have a guy in Mason Smith, as well as, of course, having Eric Armstead there. You have two three techs, guys that can play out on the edge as well, provide you some versatility and some interior push that didn't get a lot of playing time this past season on the interior. Mason Smith dealt with what was a very tumultuous regime in Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke, as Doug Peterson made him a healthy scratch in numerous games this past season. And I think that the result of that was a stop at his development. You weren't able to get him out on the field, and he didn't really get as many reps until the end of the season where he flashed big time. So I think he could be the answer on the interior, and I think the Jaguars will recognize that after watching film and evaluating the roster before the draft. Obviously, Eric Armstead has been a Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackle from the interior, pass rushing, and I think you have a guy there. I also think that Tyler Lacey is a phenomenal third option as an interior pass rusher. So I think you have guys there that can really present, starting caliber, even potential All Pro or Pro Bowl production, depending on how Eric Armstead produces or the development of Mason Smith. Kenneth Grant answers your nose tackle problem. Devon Hamilton was supposed to be the solution after he got his extension. Unfortunately, after numerous injuries, especially the back injury, it's really knocked down the level of play for him and set the expectations a little bit lower. I do expect for him currently before the draft to be the starter at nose tackle, but there's been a couple of opportunities for them to draft a replacement, and I think Kenneth Grant is the perfect replacement to plug and play and be that nose tackle, that run stopper, the guy to anchor your defense and take on double teams. He's also been able to be a pass rusher, having over 6.5 sacks over the past two seasons, including their championship run. Uh, Grant is projected to go anywhere from 7 to 36 to the Jaguars. I think if you're confident or you see a run on defensive tackles, whether it be Mason Graham, Derek Harmon, there's Shamar Stewart, who I think is more of an interior pass rusher. There's a lot of defensive tackles in this draft. Darius Alexander could be a surprise first round selection. Tyleek Smith. So there are guys in this class that could go over Kenneth. I think Kenneth could be the answer at nose tackle for you if you were expecting to move up. For me, I would be comfortable moving up 10 selections from 36 to 26, and that would only require 36, 88, and 221. So that makes it a fair value. Obviously, you lose that third round selection that you gained from Minnesota, but you're upgrading and getting a second first round pick. And in this scenario, you could walk away with both Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and completely fix the interior of your defensive line, similar to what we just saw from Los Angeles, where James Gladstone was able to reunite Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, two college teammates, and have them work in tandem as one big overall draft pick rather than two individual selections. So Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham could be the play here where you walk away with fifth and 26th overall and you really, really transform your defense. So I think him being a national champion alongside Mason Graham makes him a phenomenal selection. He has the character, he passes that. As a nose tackle, he's 6'3, 339. And I mean, his run integrity and being able to anchor double teams is what's really going to provide the most value to this defensive unit. So getting a player in Kenneth Grant would be another great scenario for me. I think you don't have to move up as high as 21, 22. Get into 26 is the sweet spot. You do lose 3 draft picks in this trade up, but I think they might look to trade down somewhere else. So we'll talk about that next in a future video. But the next selection that I see fit is a guy that we've been talking about all week on Twitter, and that is Luther Burden. I've had a lot of conversation with people who don't think he's going to land in the second round. And while this is a trade video, I do think he could land there at 36. It's very possible, especially what we just saw from the league sources that stated that the league was not extremely impressed with Luther Burden. They wanted to see more of his route tree, and they asked Missouri to send them a cut up of practice film of him actually winning on his routes. So I actually had the opportunity to watch that film. It was about 4 minutes of complete cut up of him winning in routes, creating separation, really showing his complete route tree, as well as showing what he's able to do in the red zone. And I think he's a phenomenal prospect. I have him as, let's see, I believe I have him at 15th on my overall big board. Yes, I have him at 16. I have him at 16, right above Kenneth Grant at 17. So this is a guy that I think is a first round selection. I think he's worthy of it. I think he would be a 5'2" athlete and really complement what Brian Thomas Jr. does. He's a high end number two, in my opinion. He has a blend of physical tools, vicious running style, and toughness. But he's also he has great separation success. He has a great after the catch efficiency, and he's known for his versatility. You've seen the Debo Samuel comparisons over the past 2 years. I don't think that's what we would draft him strictly to do. Obviously, you can create packages to where he's running the ball, but that's not strictly what I would do with a Luther Burden. To me, I think Gladstone will really be looking to find out if he's intangibly rich. I have seen previously the interview process and the interview grades, and Emeka Egbuka was the highest rated out of all the wide receivers. Luther Burden was the lowest out of, I believe, 7 total prospects that were expected to go day one, early day two. Now, that really brings it into question. Does Liam and James really appreciate him as a person or what he brings in terms of answering questions and how he views the game of football? That's another question for Royal McMillan as well. But Luther Burden, to me, is a great selection in the late first round. If he were to land at 36, I would be very comfortable with that selection. I do think you could look to move up for him depending on if there's a run on wide receivers. Same thing with Kenneth Grant. If there's a run on defensive tackle, you might want to go up and get your guy. If there's a run on receivers, Burden, I think you look up to do a similar trade to what you did for Jahdae Barron. I think that type of package really works in moving up and also still keeping some of the capital for this year without giving up 3 selections this year. You give up a selection next year. Um, I think Burden has really what Cohen specializes in terms of creating yards after catch, working in the screen game, working in the flats, as well as being able to scheme up a deep ball. So he really will present a safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence and be able to provide an opportunity to space the field for Brian Thomas Jr. Some honorable mentions for trade ups that I wanted to get in the video that I have in the article as well, which will be plugged below, are Emeka Egbuka, of course, wide receiver out of Ohio State, Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman out of North Dakota State, who I believe can play all five positions and on the offensive line, as well as Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. If you were to go a weapon at fifth overall, I think Derek Harmon is a worthy defensive tackle to trade up for out of 36 and really solidify that interior. So thank you guys for watching. This has been a fun episode, and I look forward to getting you guys some more content this week as we prepare for the NFL draft. Continue to support the channel and look forward to more articles and more videos to give you guys. Let's go Jaguars.